Welcome to the Energizing India podcast, a program that focuses on electric mobility in India, giving a voice to the industry sector. My name is Ravin Mirchandani, and on this program, we feature conversations with key protagonists and industry leaders creating a narrative on how to facilitate faster adoption of electric mobility in India. Post COP26, most major economies have set themselves aggressive targets for reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and there has been a very serious move, with many countries launching strategies and targets to achieve zero-emission mobility through battery electric vehicles and hydrogen mobility within the next 20 years. Some countries have even set objectives for zero emission within this decade. The move is so palpable that we are seeing big oil embrace hydrocarbon-free energy and mobility as a major pillar of the oil industry's future. French company Total has changed its name to Total Energies to underline the embrace of hydrogen and other renewable energies. BP long ago became Beyond Petroleum, and our very own Reliance in India has announced investments accumulating a few $1 billion to manufacture electric vehicle batteries including lithium and sodium ion chemistries, and to even establish large-scale gigafactories to manufacture hydrogen generation electrolyzers. If I had mentioned to you just 2 years ago, before the great lockdowns, that this is how the mobility and energy sectors were going to evolve in India within the next 700 days, you would likely have laughed me out of the room. India has witnessed the launch of its hydrogen energy strategy and also immense activity in the electric vehicle sector, particularly 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. 3 electric cars were launched during the lockdowns of 2020 and 21, including the Tata Nexon, the Hyundai Kona, and the MG ZS EV. On the luxe end of the scale, we saw the launch of the Mercedes EQC, the Jaguar I-Pace, and also the Audi e-tron. 2022 will see a plethora of vehicle launches across all sectors. The EV sector is buzzing. The chicken and egg story is about to unravel, and the charging infrastructure is being built at the same time as vehicles are being rapidly launched. It's all so exciting to watch. But is green and zero-emission mobility as promised in its present form actually green? There may be zero emissions for each kilometer traveled, but inside each EV is a crucial energy storage enabler, the battery, which is made of lithium and other rare earths such as manganese, cobalt, copper, and other rare minerals that are finite. These rare minerals come from countries as far apart as Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Australia, and for some minerals, unstable countries with blood mining such as Angola. Truth is, if all of us move to EVs tomorrow, there just isn't enough lithium or rare earths to fuel our hopes and dreams. Hydrogen may be the panacea, but it's over the horizon. For the next 10 years or so, battery electric is our technology solution of choice, and that means we need to address the batteries, not just the cost or the chemistry, or making these at large scale for electric vehicle industry in India, but also recycling or the second life of batteries when they are no longer useful for mobility. We will very soon in India hit the bottleneck in relation to availability of raw materials for batteries. Second life, recycling and harvesting of previously used rare earths at the end of the life of the battery cell pack is going to become a very precious industry for India. This very interesting subject is where we delve in our episode today. Only one company today is thinking of this problem holistically and building a sustainable strategy to address all parts of the zero-emission mobility ecosystem, including the second life of batteries beyond mobility. In fact, this company is doing such a good job in the sustainability space, we had to bring them back for a second conversation on our podcast. Today, we speak with Rajeev CHABA, Managing Director of MG Motors India. Rajeev, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Rajeev, you are an auto industry veteran with experience across multiple international markets with top global automotive brands such as Chevrolet, Cadillac, Opel, Buick. You were previously Managing Director of General Motors in India and also served as Vice President for General Motors in China and Managing Directors of General Motors in North Africa and Egypt. Before that, you were with Eicher Motors in the 90s, and even before that, you were a stellar performer at IIM Bangalore. You were also awarded the Automotive Man of the Year 2019 by Autocar Professional. This is going to be a juicy conversation with so much knowledge and experience on the other side of the table. Tell us how you ended up being the MD of MG in India.
So, I was in GM for many years, and And actually, I give credit to GM for whatever I am today. And GM took me to various places, as you mentioned, to China, to Shanghai, to Japan. I was in Japan to Egypt and India, obviously. And then after GM, I joined a private equity company, and that led me to London and US. And it was getting difficult for me to keep operating from India to be part of that company and manage operations of US from India, and travel was too much. And as the luck would have been, when I was in China, I worked for this joint venture, GM joint venture with SAIC. So when SAIC was planning to come to India, they approached me and they talked to me, and I said, okay, so this is a kind of a startup for me. So I was with them for almost 1 year as an advisor to start with, and then when we formulated the company, they made me MD, and that's how it happened. So it is interesting, and like you mentioned in your introduction, till 2 years back, 3 years back, nobody believed that we would be talking about EV here within 3 years of launch of this company. But yeah, here we are.
There's a lot of questions going through my head now, but the first one is you, in fact, brought a startup to India, and you brought a dissonant brand, lots of energy, very Virgin-esque almost in its attitude in marketing and the fresh air you brought the industry. How's the journey been, and how's the acceptance been for you as a new entrant in India?
No, yeah. So actually, one thing was very clear, that we had to do things in a different way, Ravin. Because if you did the traditional way, most of the multinationals either, I won't say failed, but they are not on the top of consumers' mind, right? So if you just continue, or if you do the way they have done it, you also would have been in the same position. And also, like in India, as we know, that the top two players hold almost 70% market share. They held 70% market share. Now there are good Indian players, Tata and Mahindra also, are trying to be in top space. So maybe the numbers have changed a little bit, but Hyundai and Maruti, they held almost 70% market share 2 years back. So so to gain something in that kind of market, you had to do things in a different way. That's why we made four pillars very clearly to our brand positioning, or the entry strategy, if you call it that. The number one pillar was the technology, and EV actually falls into that. So we said we need to differentiate basis technology, and second was unique customer experience, third was diversity, and fourth was community service. So even this community service and diversity, especially gender diversity, we thought that's an area where we need to differentiate ourselves. So the whole thing started with a very startup kind of a culture. In fact, we made an acronym for our culture called SPEED, SPEED, and we said S is like startup culture, P is the passion to succeed, E is another ease of doing business, another E is execution, and D is diversity. So under that umbrella of four pillars and the culture, we said, hey, this is how we need to do it. And technology, we wanted to differentiate right from the day one, not only in the product but also everything like what we do, including our systems, digital systems, and the customer handling and everything.
Excellent. That's in fact quite exciting for a big multinational company to come to India as a startup and look at achieving or carving out a space in the industry as a startup, which you've really very clearly done. We've been to your head office. It's a very unique place, and you can feel the passion in its design as well as the customer experience center downstairs in Gurgaon. One of the things that I think both our companies had a similar journey on was that during the great lockdowns over the 18 months, we chose to embrace the adventure and launch products during the lockdown, which is very unconventional. You launched, if I'm not mistaken, 2 products during the lockdown, virtually almost, in fact, and one of them was the ZS EV, your electric vehicle. How was that experience? How did you get to that conclusion, that decision that you're going to power through, make a virtual launch, take the bookings, and deliver a car through a lockdown? And how has that journey been? Was the decision the correct one? What were your learnings?
Absolutely. In retrospect, I think it was definitely the right decision, and we have been awarded because of that. Whether it was different creative launch events. And I would like to argue our team probably did an outstanding job, and probably the best events you can imagine during that. That gave us the opportunity to showcase our marketing strength, and the way our team did those kind of shows were unbelievable in my opinion. But that's only one part of it. That's only the front end. The back end was more difficult, frankly. The back end was like, to still manage the timelines, to get all the material, and also, as you can imagine, being part of multinational, you have lots of. When you launch, typically you get a lot of expats on the ground who help you and who teach you and guide you and mentor you, because lots of things are very new. So for ZSEV, like, it was totally new thing for most of our employees, in terms of processes and in terms of safety precautions we needed to take. And likewise Gloucester, when we launched Gloucester also during the same period, it was autonomous level 1 ADAS system we had in that car. So again, a lot of testing had to be done in India, but a lot of guidance was required. So right from video conferences to online diagnostics to crossing the language barrier sometimes, because we have experts from UK and China, and from China especially, the language barrier is there. So all kinds of challenges the team encountered, but I must say that outstanding job the team did, and we were able to launch this without a single expat on the ground. And frankly, if people know the gravity of that, I think it's huge, because typically in any multinational, especially even with our competitors also, they have hundreds of expats on the ground supporting. We didn't have a single expat, supporting the local team on the ground. So I think all that was very good, very challenging, but ended up pretty well. And on the EV part, especially, like Raven, you asked, I think important thing is that we decided 4 years back that EVs are going to be second product, and minded just before the booking started at that point of time. So in 2019, the whole industry had sold only 2,000 cars. There were only 2 players, and very minor players, I would say. And 2,000 was the annual sales. But for ZS EV, in 1 month, we got 2,000 bookings, more than 2,000 bookings. So that told you that there were early adapters, and this wave was just coming. And now I think it has hit us. And I'm sure when we go more into conversation about EV, two-wheelers, three-wheelers, I think the tipping point is already happening, in my opinion. Four-wheeler would happen very soon. And so yes, we couldn't have imagined, as you said in the introduction, till 2 years back, that this is going to be kind of a mainstream conversation, but I think it's becoming very important.
So you're absolutely right. We used to see an electric vehicle once a month, and then we started seeing it once a week. Now you see it once a day, or maybe once an hour. You're starting to see the green number plates everywhere, particularly cars. And the scooters have become ubiquitous, just like in China. How many MG ZS EVs are on the road today in India?
Yeah, we should have sold more, frankly, but because of these chips issues, we are not able to produce. So we have sold close to 5,000 EVs approximately so far, and all this during this COVID period. But the good news is that we are getting bookings of approximately 600 to 700 bookings every month, and we are able to supply only 200 or 300. So that's the gap. And mind it, ZS EV is not a cheap car. This is around 25 lakhs of rupees. So at that price point, we get 600 to 700 orders a month, which frankly has surpassed all expectations what we had.
So can we dwell on that just a little bit? Because, it's a pertinent point. The MG ZS EV is 25 lakhs. The Hyundai Kona is just slightly above that. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got the Nexon at 16 or 17 lakhs and the Tigor at 10 or 12. And there's a host of Tata vehicles coming in at that level as well. Yet you are getting such an enormous amount of demand. What has changed in the Indian market? What is this new dynamic you're seeing that you're getting an adequate level of demand at a premium price? Is there a very clear delivery of value in the range that the ZS EV has, or have you seen another change in the customer decision-making dynamic?
To be honest, few things. Number one, this whole talk around EV, which is led globally. So there is a global push, and I don't want to get into all this Paris Convention to COP26, which just concluded, and everyone has realized, at least the decision makers and the top politicians have realized that we need to go towards they were talking about carbon neutrality to net zero now, and net zero targets have been given. So that's the starting point globally. Then regulators and climate activists and politicians all are moving towards sustainable solutions, rightly so for our globe. Then within that, now consumer awareness also has started happening. So all the energies, I would say, are getting aligned towards more cleaner solutions. So activism to regulators to politicians and consumers intent and desire now. And within consumers, I would say the younger generation. Younger generation is getting more and more that, because they are saying, hey, listen, we need to really be much more bothered than the oldies, because oldies have spent their life primarily, but they are bothered, rightly so, right? So the awareness and the consumer knowledge, I think is also pushing. Now when we come to the Indian scene, frankly, here consumers are even right now are ready to consume more, but they are looking for solutions. Unfortunately, solutions from OEMs have not been forthcoming at that speed. I would still say and feel very happy and proud of the fact that 4 years back we decided to launch ZSEV as our second product. And mind it, Raven, we were like criticized a lot, and there were a lot of naysayers and a lot of people who said, why the hell would you launch a second product as EV? The first was Hector, second was ZSEV, and lots of guys questioned that, but like, as you are seeing the numbers and the very fact that we are getting into this conversation around ZSEV and EV, testifies that, we predicted the thing pretty well, I would say. Now more and more choice, probably if people get, the numbers will increase exponentially, in my opinion. As far as ZSEV, I think I would argue in this price point, around that price point is the best EV in the country. You may get some high-end cars for 70-80 lakhs or 1 crore, but how many guys can spend that kind of money? For size, for technology, for range, finesse, quality of interiors, I think this is the best package in the country as of now, I would argue, ZSEV. And that's why we are seeing queues for this car, but we are not done yet, and we definitely want to launch more EVs as we go forward.
So I'm going to probe you on that, Rajeev. In 2022, you've got the Mini electric that's coming, the Volvo S40 electric version, the Mercedes EQA. Tata is going to launch 2 or maybe 3 vehicles at the lower end of the spectrum. Have you got some electric vehicles planned for this 2022-23 fiscal year?
Yeah, so we have already announced, Revin, that our next car is also going to be an EV. So we have launched already 4 products. Hector was the first connected car, second was the EV, the third was Gloucester, which was autonomous level 1, and the fourth was Aster, which again, like, we upped the ante on technology, and it was the first AI-assisted, voice-assisted car, as well as autonomous level 2 technology in Aster in that segment for the first time. So these are the 4 cars which we have launched. The 5th one is going to be another EV, and here we are going to test the price point between 10 lakhs and 15 lakhs, and hopefully that should be a tipping point towards more volumes, in my opinion.
The second bugbear for the industry of faster implementation, and this is a standard response we get across the industry, whether we speak to regulators, policymakers, grid service providers, startups, software companies, charging companies, or OEMs such as yourselves. The big challenge for 2022 is access to finance. Access to finance to fund battery factories, to fund startups, but more importantly also to fund consumers who want to buy a car. And for a long time, finance companies and banks couldn't get their heads around an electric vehicle loan because they didn't understand the life of the battery, how the car was going to behave. How have you addressed that? And what changes have you seen in the last 12 months?
So actually, Ravan, very, very pertinent questions and timely questions, I would say, and as the luck would have been, we haven't seen yet, gap from demand side. So, our demand is much more than supply. So frankly, we have not really faced this problem on this car. But as you go towards more volume and when you go for more customers, I think this point has to be addressed. And also, as the luck would have been before COVID, we were talking to, or rather fleet companies were talking to us because of the lower cost of ownership. It makes a lot of sense, commercial sense for fleet companies to own it, and for them financing is very important, right? So actually this issue is going to come up very soon. I would guess maybe for Tata, because their volumes are much more already, it is an important issue. For us also, it will become, especially with our second car, will become an important issue. So there are 2-3 things here. It's not only about the battery life and warranty on battery, but also bankers would be interested in knowing what's the resale price of your EV, right? Because it gets linked to the resale price ultimately, right? So as the luck would have been, when in India, few manufacturers, and I'll not name them, but few manufacturers, when they tried with, if I can say, first generation of EV, the range was not reliable, the quality was not reliable, and I'm sure, and most of them were used in the commercial usage. So their resale value probably was not very encouraging for bankers, and that became a data point for Indian bankers. But actually, if you look at it internationally, let's say, what's the second-hand resale price of Tesla? Or what's the resale price of Leaf, let's say Nissan, which came pretty early, and then Volt of Chevrolet and some other international products now. And as you know, in China, there are many products. In fact, we have done the study on resale price, that actually the resale price of EV is holding up much better than the first-gen cars, and in fact, better than ICE engine cars. So actually we need to collect this data and educate everyone that when you have a latest global latest technology in your vehicles, like we have in ZS EV, in fact the second-hand price or the resale price of the car actually can be better than ICE engine, and if not better, at least at par with ICE engine. So that is one issue, right? This is what we need to get the data and educate people. Don't go by the first gen EV cars in India. Then second point is the battery. Now the battery, 8 years warranty is 7 years, 8 years warranty is the standard thing which is happening globally as well as in India. But what we forget to say is after 8 years what will happen. It doesn't mean that the car will stop running or the battery will be useless, right? Only thing is the range will go down, efficiency will go down, power will go down. So some customers, considering the Indian customers frugal mindset and things like that, you may see the scenario that customers will keep running the cars in the 9th year, 10th year, 11th year, and by the way, it may be a second-hand car, third-hand car, fourth-hand car, whatever, right? And then after that you have usage of that will come to that separately. What's the usage of that car, let's say after 10 years or 12 years? So here people are also talking about, can we think of battery finance separately and car finance separately? People are also talking about battery as a service. Can we give it to especially the fleet customers? So there are lots of ideas coming up. I think this whole thing is evolving faster than what we can imagine. So I'm sure battery as a service, battery financing separately, all these solutions are going to be there sooner than we think. And that's how I think we're going to address this issue.
Very good answer there. And I've got 30 questions in my head coming from that, Rajeev. But if I were to put myself in the consumer shoes, and when we talk to consumers, you raised a very pertinent point. They always say, 8 saal baad kya? And so where do you see this industry evolving? Do you actually see batteries being replaced? Or do you see us going towards the big American-style junkyards with cars that are then harvested for spare parts? What is the life cycle of an EV going to be beyond the life of the 8-year battery?
So I think nobody knows exact answer. As I said, this whole thing is evolving, but few things which we can learn. And by the way, nowhere, if I can say, I think I'm right. Nowhere car has completed 8 years of life yet, right? Because even the oldest Tesla would be what, 4 years old, 5 years old, still we have to see that. But a country like India probably needs a different kind of a solution than Western markets, because here, as you know, our nature is to repair rather than replace, right? And the cost of that maintenance or the cost of ownership is very, very important in our cost context. So in other markets, the solutions probably would be, and I don't know exact answer, but the solutions would be, that the third hand customer probably will will, because he has paid a very small price to own that third-hand car, will agree to lower power, lower range, maybe without AC usage, and can expand the life of the car beyond 8 years for sure, in 10th year, 12th year. So that's one possible usage. And the second thing is, in Indian context, I would like to believe, because we have cells and then modules and then battery management system and things like that. So can we think of replacing cells and modules and giving a kick to the life of battery? Maybe that's possible. And the third would be, that you take the battery for some alternative usage, or repurpose that battery, and maybe give a good price for that used battery to the consumer if battery was financed separately. So in this case, as an example, and even you may be knowing that even 2 years back we started talking to companies like Excom and Tata Power and all, and through them we are talking to some telecom companies that for energy storage purposes, I think these batteries are ideally suited for telecom towers. So can they use it? We are also talking to Terry, and Terry came with an idea that can we see repurposing of these batteries for rural electrification. So we have not made headway into that direction yet, but those are the ideas which we are grappling with. So I'm happy to say that because we are one of the first comers into this whole thing, so we are working a lot with a lot of like-minded people, like-minded institutions, trying to create this whole ecosystem to learn this whole thing industry together and evolve. So second usage of battery, repair of battery, expanding the life of the battery, and then last is urban mining. That if nothing else works out, or maybe as an example, I'm just saying it for the heck of it, in the 15th year of the battery, then everything, jab sab kuch khatam ho gaya, then what do? And then you try to take the minerals out of it. So call it urban mining. And for urban mining, we have joined hands with 3 companies, as you know, Tessem, Umicore, and now Ador. How do we take out these minerals and recycle the whole thing back into the industry? So these are the possible things, and I'm happy that we are working on all the fronts right now to learn.
So you've touched on Second Life, and then the comment that you made is you could have a static energy application such as cell site towers, village electrification, all very valid, where you do not need the torque, you don't need the speed, you don't need the range, you just need a steady state power supply, and you could get a bigger punch with lithium ion instead of lead acid. So technically a battery wall could work for a village, for example. Is this going to be part of the business plan of MG, or are you looking to set up an ecosystem, as you've just described, with the 3 or 4 companies that you have either invested in or partnered with, to be able to create this sustainability in the value chain that MG is creating?
So Ravin, I'll tell you one important thing about our company and about our culture, which will give you some idea about the answers. If anyone comes to us, our company, saying that he's into any part of EV business, we at least ensure that that person is given the audience. And we have a special team of people who talk to these guys. So you can be on the battery side, life cycle side, you can be on the infrastructure side, battery management, charger management, supplies of chargers. So that's how we have learned, frankly, Raven. We don't claim that we knew everything. Frankly, whatever language I'm using and talking to you today, till 2 years back, I didn't know even 10% of it. And you said already, I'm a Buddha, I'm a veteran, so I didn't know. So we are learning. So the good thing is that we have that kind of culture and atmosphere in our company. And by the way, on that note, even one person who heads our this whole initiative is Neha, and she's a young girl, she's a young woman of maybe 31, 32 years old, and she heads the whole operations for EV for us. And then there's a younger guy, maybe 24, 25 years, like your own car, heading EV, because these guys are more adept and smarter than us in new technologies, to be very frank. And so yes, so we are partnering with all these new companies who are trying to make impact, trying to make business case on the EV side. Like I said, that on the charger side, we have already joined hands. including a very small thing which is not related to our topic today, but I'll just give you an idea that that even how do you install a charger at someone's home? You know, and our dealers don't know; they have never done it, right? So we encouraged a company to have a startup in that area, who basically just go and do the load study of that particular place, talk to discom companies to how to get the enhance the load or get the cable and things like that, and that's a startup, by the way, called eCharge Base into that area, because we give charger as part of the package, right? So even that is something to learn. And by the way, these companies are going for, they're recruiting some retirees from disc companies, like who know how to handle that part of the business, something very new. So that's why here the ecosystem is important, collaboration is very important. Partners will do lots of different things. The new revenue stream, I think, is important. So right now, Raven, as we speak, we are encouraging what would be the new business model for dealers if suppose more EVs get added to their portfolio. What happens to their revenue, in workshop revenue and sales revenue? So that's one area. Then life cycle management of battery as a service. So whole new areas are there. So without partners, frankly, and without ecosystem, we can't be successful. So I'm happy that our mindset is that where we are willing and talking to many people and companies.
You talked about urban mining, and of course it's going to become very important, because it's often said that the biggest mines for lithium in India are in people's drawers, top drawers, because it's their used mobile phones that they never get rid of, or if they get rid of, they go into landfill. And then, as with everything in India, we have jugaad, and the urban mining that happens today is very unsafe. When the e-rickshaws first came to Delhi, we had street level recycling of lead acid batteries, and a lot of poison was leaching into the rivers, because that's what's happening at street level. The same today is happening when people are doing urban mining of lithium batteries, because they're done on small scales, they're done with high temperatures in little sheds. In your opinion, how do we evolve this industry to become regularized, regulated, and take the mafia element out of it? Because it's not, it's not the pot of gold that's sitting from poverty that you can leach, but it's actually a regularized industry with a very determined way of how you do the urban mining. How can we do this better?
Actually, Raven, you made an important point here. Typically, if I just categorize this whole as scrap, and scrap disposal is a dirty thing in India, right? And typically you have rack pickers collecting this scrap, or there may be institutions who do this as a business, but again, it's not really considered a very premium, high-end kind of a business, right? And it has its own safety issues, it has its own landfill issues, and environmental hazards issues and things like that. Safety of individuals, safety of environment, and safety of two people. There are whole kinds of things. Now, when it comes to e-waste, it becomes even more dangerous. And becomes more important for us to deal with that. Now, when it comes to EV, then we are talking about battery, and it has two things. One is obviously disposal, which is related to the scrap part, but recovery of metal. Just imagine when we are as of now, we know, and maybe for the next 2 years we'll keep importing cells, right? And the government has come out with this PLI scheme on chemistry, ACC, and hopefully there should be some cell generation and cell production and battery production in real sense in India, hopefully in 3-4 years time. But till that, we are going to keep importing. So you have e-rickshaws, you have two-wheelers, you have three-wheelers, two-wheelers. December sale itself was 40,000 units in a single month, right? With the FAME scheme, PLI scheme, and everything, government is trying to push us in the right direction, rightly so. But then just imagine the kind of imports you will do because of this cell. And then if suppose we don't have safe disposal system in our country, which was the case till few years back, and some companies like Umicore or Tessem, with whom we joined hands, they were actually exporting these big batteries back to certain countries like Belgium or Singapore, where they have got a huge big infrastructure to dispose safely and do the urban mining there, right? So I think it's a double whammy. First you pay money to import, and then you pay money to export, and the metals, this lithium, nickel, copper, they don't belong to you. Doesn't make any sense. And that's where the local safe disposal system becomes very, very important. So like Atiro kind of a thing, frankly, is going to be more and more impactful and meaningful, because they will do the urban mining within our own country, and they can recover. They claim they can recover 99% of the metals through the process, and it's also a low cost solution. It's not high cost as 50 million, 100 million kind of a plant. They claim it's $2 million or $3 million kind of a plant in general. So I think important thing here is, we have taken maybe 30-40 years to come out with end of life cycle of vehicle policy, right? The scrap policy has been just made valid or applicable just a year back, I think. Yeah. For battery, we should not do that. As of now, again, right now we are trying to incentivize companies and incentivize people to go towards battery. But I think soon we should come out with battery disposable policy also. Let's not wait for another 3-4 years. Because four-wheelers volume still may be low in the next few years, but two-wheelers and e-rickshaws are already generating the waste, the battery waste. So it's better to come out with the policy, and there are provisions everywhere globally, like extended producer responsibility for battery disposal, to OEM's responsibility, to the government responsibility. So in terms of policy, I think we should definitely come out and give incentives on that too. If you, as an example, battery, if you dispose it off safely, there may be some kind of schemes and incentives to encourage that kind of behavior. So I'm sure. So we need to be mindful of this policy at the earliest. In my opinion, it's very, very important for the climate, for individuals, and for the safety.
One of the things that you, MG, have done very well is you looked at sustainability in your manufacturing plants. For example, your factories have a majority of energy coming from renewable sources. You're trying to be, hydrocarbon free or zero emission even in your manufacturing plants. I'm interested in your journey. Why and how did you achieve it, and how happy are you with where you're at today?
So I think that's a good one. So Ravan, we wanted to make sure that it's not only on the product where we show our attempt towards sustainability. It has to be really from your heart, and it has to be reflected in each and every aspect of your business, right? In that spirit, we started with a simple step as making a sustainable cross-functional team in the plant. And then we said, hey, let's at least measure our carbon footprint. At least let's see how much carbon we are emitting ourselves, right? So we started with team, we started with carbon footprint, and then we started giving targets that, hey, can we become carbon neutral in certain time frame? And now obviously at least we have started talking also, can it be net zero within MG India? So at least all the right talks we are doing it. Now in that spirit of reducing the carbon footprint, the one of the big things came, which was wind solar hybrid energy solution in Gujarat. Luckily we got in touch with a vendor and who was doing it. So I'm really happy and very proud, frankly, of that fact that our team was able to join hands with this company, Clean Max Wind Solar, and 50% of energy is going to come from them. But also, I'll just tell you, because of this whole cultural thing and cross-functional effort by the team, things like, I'll just tell you small things like we became the first OEM to implement a new chemical for degreasing process in paint shop. Basically, which eliminates the need, which saves a lot of fuel and also is very environmental friendly. Likewise, we are the first OEM in a particular category of OEMs, which is called non-major accident hazard category. We have started using pipe natural gas, which is more eco-friendly. Then we are trying to creating huge carbon sink now by greenification, and which everyone does, by the way, but we are trying to do more aggressively. Water harvesting, things like co-press. We have also we are doing the co-processing of the hazardous material. So we are trying to make a byproduct which goes into the cement industry, and we are selling that. So the whole landfill needs, we have stopped now. We used to have huge landfill needs, now zero landfill, because everything, all the waste we are recycling and using. So that's how, so, and by the way, we got 14001 environment management system certification also last year, and we are aiming for IGBC green certification. So, so this this is not only on the product but also on the process, and not only about recycling but also energy efficiency and waste elimination and things like that. So I think the whole gamut of things we are trying to work on to do our bit in this.
Our own assessment is that people buying cars in 2022 will buy an ICE car for the most. 4 or 5% will choose to be EVs. But 3 years from today, or 4 years from today, when that cycle comes again and they're replacing that car, an electric vehicle will be a very natural choice. So in fact, we might be seeing the last cycle for a majority of people in buying ICE vehicles in the next 2 years, after which when they replace it, the natural choice will be electric vehicles, which means the tipping point you were talking about is sometime late in this decade. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah. In fact, you're right, and actually, I would say that the biggest concern, adding on to my first part again, that biggest constraint is the lack of product availability to a consumer, and even right now, in fact, the latest surveys say that 40% of the consumer are looking or willing to look at the EV choice if they have, which was maybe less than 10% 2 years back. So now 40% of the customers are willing to look at. So I think in terms of pricing point, I would say that the moment you have more choice around 10 lakhs of rupees, from pricing perspective, that is going to be the tipping point, because at that point of time, in those kind of cars, you can, like scooter, you can probably plug it in 15 amp socket. So 10 lakhs, anyone who can get a good product around 10 lakhs of rupees, a compelling product, I think will be the tipping point. And again, yes, people need to have confidence and assurity about the resale price, the battery usage, the chargers availability in case of emergency and things like that. All these things will evolve. So I would see in two-wheeler case, I'm absolutely clear in my mind that in 10 years time, India will not have a single ICE two-wheeler. In 8 or 10 years time, and by the way, we have a huge volume, right? Huge market. So that's why I'm saying 8 or 10 years. I think no ICE engine in two-wheelers. And cars, I think more product availability may surprise us, And now because of this PLI, I'm seeing that even other players who were probably not very aggressively showing their intentions, at least, they also are becoming part of it. So it may be in the next. You're right. I'm sorry, I've taken a long route to answer this question, because I was thinking while talking to you. I think in 3-4 years' time, this whole acceleration may surprise us even on two-wheeler.
So I'm conscious of the time, Rajeev. You're a busy man. The last question I want to ask you is one we ask all the talent, the guests who come on our show. And it's a very frivolous question, but we ask it because it gives a very clear answer always. And that question is this. If you had the opportunity to be Prime Minister of India for just one day, and you could make any decision you wanted for faster adoption of electric vehicles in India, what would that decision be?
I think about the whole ecosystem, right from cells to localization of electric components to producing of cars to battery disposal, the whole life cycle, the whole chain, whole supply chain, right from cells to battery life cycle has to be seen as one. And I think this would be, I won't say Prime Minister or whoever, but the job of the policy makers. You cannot look at only one piece of it and see electric vehicle. Like, you come out with a strategy on cell, or you come out with a strategy on producing more cars. The whole supply chain has to be seen, including, how do we become self-sufficient in most of these things. And maybe certain part of the strategy you decide that we will not be self-sufficient, we will import. And by the way, when you import, doesn't mean that you are dependent on one country, because while imports also you may have choices. As an example, in oil, you don't import oil from one country, you import oil from many countries, right? Likewise in battery, you may decide to have partners not only from China but also from Japan or Korea, so I think there are choices. So the whole if I am the top policy maker of this country, I will look at it from the whole supply chain perspective. And trust me, it's not very complicated.
Excellent answer. Thank you for that, Rajiv. This has been one of our most enjoyable conversations. Very candid, very refreshing, lots of gyan. Thank you very much for having made the time for Energizing India.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for having me, and I also love talking, and I hope it made sense. Thank you very much.